You ever meet someone who always has to be right? Not sometimes, always, even over the tiniest details. It's exhausting to watch, and sometimes exhausting to be. You might think they're confident, or maybe just stubborn, but there's a hidden side, a side shaped by fear, insecurity, and a mind wired to protect itself. Why do some people need to be right all the time? That's what we're diving into today. At first glance, it seems simple. Some people just like to argue, or they just want to win. But reality is more tangled than that. Our brains, emotions, and even our childhoods play a role. Understanding this can help you see these people and yourself in a new light. Let's start with the way they think. People who always need to be right often filter the world through biases. Take confirmation bias. That's the brain trick where you only notice information that matches your beliefs. If they believe something is true, they ignore facts that say otherwise. They live in a bubble of certainty. Then there's black and white thinking. For them, things are either right or wrong. There's no gray area. Life doesn't always work like that, but their minds demand clarity. And when life gets messy, that can feel uncomfortable, so they double down on being correct. Overconfidence effect is another piece. These people often overestimate what they know. They feel sure about topics they barely understand. It's not arrogance in the usual sense. It's a defense. If they look uncertain, they might feel exposed. Now let's dig into the emotional side. A big driver is fear of being wrong. Deep down, they don't want to feel small or unworthy. Being wrong threatens their sense of self. And when self-worth feels fragile, being right becomes a shield. Closely tied to that is the need for control. Life is unpredictable, messy, chaotic. Claiming you're right is a way to feel stable, even if it's just about the color of a shirt or the correct route to a store. Control, even tiny control, can calm anxiety. Then there's the fragile ego. Some people's self-esteem is tightly linked to external validation. If someone notices their mistake, it feels like failure. Being right is like armor. It protects their identity. Sometimes these emotional drivers aren't obvious to outsiders. They might appear confident or certain, but inside, there's tension. Anxiety hums beneath the surface. Every word, every correction, every argument is a way to feel safe. These patterns shape relationships in powerful ways. People who always need to be right often argue or correct constantly. Even small disagreements turn into battlegrounds. Friends and family notice. They feel drained, frustrated, or even resentful. Power dynamics also play a role. Sometimes being right isn't about facts. It's about asserting dominance. Showing someone else is wrong feels like winning a tiny war. Over time, this can create distance between them and the people they care about. It can also leave them lonely. Relationships demand compromise, empathy, and patience. When someone insists on being right all the time, those qualities struggle to shine. People may pull away, even if they love the person. Now, where does all this begin? Often, it starts in childhood. A perfectionist upbringing can set the stage. Kids who grow up with harsh judgment learn to avoid mistakes at all costs. They tie their value to being good enough or correct, and some simply model what they saw. Parents or peers who prize rightness over feelings. Fear of failure adds another layer. A child shamed for being wrong learns to guard themselves. They develop habits that survive into adulthood, arguing, correcting, proving themselves, even when it's not necessary. Sometimes early praise also plays a role. Kids who are constantly told they're smart or talented may start to see mistakes as personal flaws. Being wrong threatens not just their sense of competence, but their identity itself. Understanding this doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains it. It's not always about meanness. It's often about survival, about a fragile mind trying to stay safe. Now here's a truth most people don't realize. These patterns are hard to notice in yourself. People rarely admit their need to be right. Psychological defenses kick in. The mind protects itself. Admitting mistakes feels like a threat, but there are signs. Someone overly rigid may rarely compromise. They insist on having the last word. They feel threatened by differing opinions. And when someone challenges them, even gently, they respond defensively. Sometimes these people feel trapped in their own thoughts. They want respect, certainty, and safety. But the very tools they use to get those things can isolate them. That isolation fuels more defensiveness, creating a cycle. If you see this in yourself, there's hope. Curiosity can be a tool. Self-reflection can loosen the grip of needing to be right. Asking yourself, what if I'm wrong? Or, why do I feel threatened by this? Can begin the shift. It helps to notice the emotional weight behind the behavior. Behind every correction, every argument, there's often anxiety, insecurity, or fear. Seeing it this way creates compassion, both for others and for yourself. Real-life examples help make this concrete. Imagine a coworker who interrupts every meeting to correct minor details. It's irritating, but inside, they may feel anxiety about being judged. Another example, a friend who never admits mistakes online. Their reputation feels tied to every post, every comment. Even in families, the pattern shows up. A sibling who always wins debates at the dinner table might carry childhood shame about being wrong. They learned early that mistakes are dangerous. Think about yourself. How often do you hesitate to speak because you're afraid of looking foolish? How often do you argue just to feel safe or competent? These are small mirrors into the psychology of being right. Here's another twist. Needing to be right can sometimes mask empathy and understanding. People may want to connect, but their fear makes them defensive. They correct rather than listen. They explain rather than empathize, and that can leave both sides frustrated. Yet there's a path to balance. People can learn to be curious instead of defensive. They can ask questions, listen, and admit uncertainty without fear. The key is separating self-worth from correctness. A simple practice: pause before correcting. Ask yourself, am I helping or am I proving I'm right? This small pause can slowly loosen rigid thinking. Over time, it reshapes habits and relationships. Another approach: notice emotional triggers. What makes you defensive? What makes you argue? Awareness is the first step to choice, and choice is freedom. Here's a small trick. Practice saying, I could be wrong, out loud. It feels strange at first, almost dangerous, but it's a way to weaken the grip of certainty. And when you model this behavior, others around you can follow. The truth is, needing to be right is part of being human. We all want certainty, but when it dominates our lives, it limits us. It narrows our vision and dims our empathy. And that's a subtle tragedy, because life is messy, full of gray, full of learning. When we understand this psychology, we see more than just stubborn behavior. We see fear, we see insecurity, we see a mind struggling to protect itself. And that understanding opens doors to compassion, to growth, and to connection. Philosophically, it reminds us of something universal. Life isn't about winning arguments. Life is about being present, learning, and connecting. Every argument lost or won is small compared to the weight of understanding another person or yourself. So the next time you encounter someone who always has to be right, pause, notice what's beneath the surface, and maybe notice it in yourself too. Ask, why do I feel so threatened by being wrong? Because at the heart of it, being right isn't the point. Feeling safe, valued, and seen is. And if you can recognize that, the world becomes a little softer, a little more forgiving, a little more real. Even for those who argue constantly, there's a chance for change. Curiosity, reflection, and small acts of humility can loosen the armor. They can rebuild relationships. They can make life less heavy. In the end, the psychology of people who always need to be right teaches us something bigger. Our fear shapes behavior, Childhood leaves marks, and rigid thinking can be both armor and cage. We can't control everyone, and we can't erase their patterns. But we can change our perspective. We can choose curiosity over defensiveness, understanding over judgment, and in that choice, we find freedom, not from being wrong, but from being trapped by the need to be right. Remember, the next time you feel compelled to argue, to correct, to insist, pause, ask, am I protecting myself or am I connecting? That simple question can shift everything. Life isn't about always being right. Life is about noticing, learning, and being brave enough to say, sometimes, I don't know, and maybe that's the hardest right we'll ever find.